I'm gonna miss you guys.
Miss you too, man.
You're taking a risk. It might get nutty, but you are moving to Rome.
Rome, Washington.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
Why on earth did you move here? I got a job at the college. You're the new hire. I've heard about you. Hi.
Hi.
Oh my God. I can't believe it. We totally needed a black kid.
What are you doing right now? We are going to have a liquid lunch.
We usually get effed up.
You know, small town living, sometimes it could use a little boost. The thing about this guy, close your eyes, you can't even tell he's black.
I hope your family's okay with all this.
They're fine, yeah.
If I had a dime for every divorce in this town, I'd still be poor.
Last night, your son put a huge rock through my front window.
Wasn't it dark? Or is it just easy to imagine that he did it?
This is our new community. Not everyone is a racist, Mac.
Where have you been, Gina?
I have been working. It's not that easy, being the very pale third wheel between the two of you.
What goes on at Julie's? You can tell me.
Well, we watch stuff, grab ass.
Grab ass.
Leave me alone. I should never have brought us all here.
Everything's all right.
Everything's not all right.
You okay?
Oh, yes.
You know, you have a really good singing voice.
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Thank you so much for being here, you guys. Congratulations on this wonderful movie. I loved it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You are the writer of the film. Let's talk about where this started for you, because one of the things that I love about this film is I mean, obviously you made it about a year ago, a year and a half ago, but it is about bridging this divide that we all talk about, which is the sort of the way that we view ourselves as urbanites versus the way that we assume as urbanites, suburbanites view themselves, and vice versa. So where did this story start for you?
Sure. I had been thinking about these things for a long time. Even they're very relevant in the news right now, but about, oh gosh, we're going to reveal ourselves if I tell you how many years ago I started thinking about the film. But it's loosely inspired by experiences that I've had. My family looks like this family. I have two sons, actually, but when my first was pretty small, I just started to think and imagine what his life might be like and what he might face and how the world might view him, how he might view the world, and that's really where it started.
And Rob, when did you sign on as director? What were your thoughts about the script when you first read it?
I mean, it's a beautiful script, it's a beautiful story, and it's very unusual in terms of scripts you get as a director. It's not a typical Hollywood movie. It's gentle. It tackled like every issue about America. It tackled a lot of sensitive, delicate issues, which was both a little intimidating, but also felt like a good challenge.
It's also it's never preachy in any way, and it's never like trying to channel that it's tackling issues at all.
And I think
it doesn't feel like an issue-driven movie.
No, it's a family. It's a character family, and it's sort of Annie's family. And I met Annie and her family, and she's got these wonderful boys and this amazing, brilliant husband, and she's pretty good too, I guess. No, but these great characters, and basically when we're tested by these challenges, moving, not having your stuff, not having friends, not feeling you belong, it starts to show fractures in even the most loving family. So we wanted to start with the most loving family that seemed on paper to be having it all together, and realize that we're all susceptible to the challenges of life, and then there you see where your real characters lie, and that's what the film did.
A lot of the film is about judgment and how we assume somebody else is judging us, and part of that is the judgment that we sort of place on them. When did you start noticing that in your life? When did that become a part of the story?
I mean, I think for me, just coming into adulthood, you start to realize that people are very complex and the world really wants to categorize. And then once you become a parent, I'm sure parents can relate, you so want your own child to be viewed just exactly for who he or she is. You want that person to be understood as an individual. And so once you have that perspective, I think it just heightens everything else that you've been looking at as you become an adult.
Christine, when did you join the film?
I don't know at what point.
It was like a week. It was like a week before you started
I just know
shooting.
I had to book a ticket really quickly, and I was actually on vacation with my family and got the script sent to me, and it was one of those periods of time where on vacation it was like, am I even tempted to read this because I'm kind of in family mode? But I from page one, it just had me. And then it was quickly flying back from Hawaii to New York to like shoot for a night. And it was just such an incredible experience.
What about the script had you right away?
Well, I think, it was just, I think like what you said, I mean, from the beginning, when you realize the world this family's going into and the way it's presented, it wasn't preachy. And there are all different little sort of twists and turns, I think within perception, and I think, we had talked about, like, there are no real villains, there's no real... They're the bad guys, they're the good guys. And I just thought it was a really interesting role for me. I just loved it from the start.
It's one of those things that it's really about. I don't want to say what your film is really about, but for me, what it was really about was this idea of perception, and that like the way that we perceive somebody else's thoughts about us has everything to do, or the way that we think somebody perceives us has everything to do with how we're actually perceiving them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I had been watching as people sort of map behavior onto others. And that was particularly true for me, having a biracial kid, and sort of being a person who grew up in a pretty white town and then marrying a black man. I started to notice how my own expectations, others' expectations sort of push sort of someone to behave in a certain way.
Moments where you're like, are you looking at us? And someone's like, no, I'm not looking.
Well, I mean, yes, of course. It's like, it's sort of woven into everyday life. And nothing, dire, but certainly I think it just was a perception shift for me. And how much do expectations sort of nudge behavior to sort of produce results? And certainly for a kid, who really wants to be liked, like Clark does in this story, I think it's a very powerful force. So
adorable kid. Can we just say this? I mean, Oona, you are adorable as well, but this kid is adorable right here on the poster. Oona, you're wonderful in the film. You have some incredible dance moves.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that scene was out there, but it was fun though. Yeah, and like the choreography was like, not what I do at all. And it was but it was fun though. And I think me and Miranda were like a little like hesitant because we were gonna be like, dancing these really weird dance moves in front of like an entire crew, and we were kind of weirded out, but I think we just kind of had fun with it, and it was really fun.
I have to say that was my favorite day, and these guys really like played their cards close to the chest. They were like, we're not ready, we really didn't learn it that well, and Nelson, the lead actor's brother, is an amazing dance choreographer. So he was working them pretty hard, and like I think he was like, I'm not sure they're ready either. He was like being pretty pro, and then they come out, and it's sort of like a Britney Spears, like it's a kind of inappropriately mature dance for younger girls, but right on the edge, we hope. And yeah, they were, but also technically like difficult, like to do. Like I could never have done that. You've seen me try to dance. It would have been so.
It's also better if they weren't entirely ready to do it.
I know
you
that
don't
was
want them to be a perfect choreography.
That was my main note. Was guys, it looks like you're professional, like backup dancers for Britney Spears. Could you act more? Could you go back to 3 days ago before you knew this routine? So that was the main challenge, was dialing them back because they were so good.
Rob, talk about the filmmaking process behind the movie, because you do a wonderful job of telling the story and also not sort of showcasing the filmmaking. Obviously, it takes great filmmaking to tell a story that feels effortless, but it's also clear that you're kind of hiding a little bit as a director.
Definitely, that was the intention, and I have to give a lot of credit to Tom Richmond, who shot the film, and Neil Patel, who did the production design. But that was always that we were all on the same page. We did not want this to feel like a movie. We wanted to feel like life unfolding, and for you to have a sort of seat in a room that you're not used to having, a family discussing whether Clark should hate white people or not. Is like, I know those conversations happen, and I've never been in the bedroom where it does. So I wanted you to feel almost uncomfortable to be present during some tense scenes of, especially family conversation. But yeah, my favorite filmmakers are like Tom McCarthy or Alexander Payne, or folks that have a really Noah Baumbach, who you get out of the way of the storytelling so that you don't think of this as, oh, that was an interesting decision, or like, what a cool Steadicam shot that was, but without making it look bad. I mean, Tom said we don't want this to look like, this had more of a budget than a $50,000 mumblecore film, so he's like, I don't want this to look like an expensive mumblecore film. So it's finding the balance, lighting from outside, and getting a great handheld operator. I'd say 90% of the film was shot handheld, but it didn't feel jerky. It doesn't feel like, you want to sit back from the screen, I hope. So we wanted it to feel you're in good hands, but don't think too much about the hands. Think about the characters.
How did you go about casting?
Well, Avi Kaufman was our New York. She works right around here, actually, and has cast 100 films. You've probably seen 60 of them. They're all amazing, like American classics, including all of Ang Lee's films. So I met her through my first feature, and then she is also sort of known for finding and casting great young actors, which this film needed. So she came on board early on, and that's how we got our 2 leads. And then you have to get your leads, which helps you get the financing, which helps you get the dates. And then it's a real mad dash to fill in the rest of the roles. But yeah, it's she narrowed it down we only had 4 weeks of pre-production, so it wasn't like a worldwide talent search. We had to find people who had experience and had been in things. And I think Miranda, who plays the other girl in the film, had very limited acting. She was mainly in theater production, so this was her first kind of feature film, and that was really exciting to kind of discover someone. But everyone else had done really impressive work, and I connected with them. And to me, it's always, do they feel like they're acting? That sounds really stupid, but do I feel like this person is trying to show me a brilliant dramatic performance, or I just buy them as this person? And it's a gut feeling. And then it's, how do they take my note? Like, can we communicate? And if I give them the note, are they just going to try to puppet what I'm saying, or are they going to make it personal to them and give me something that's meaningful and real? So that's what drives my casting.
One of the things that I loved about the film, I think that I said in the green room, is that there is no villain in the movie. Can you talk about how hard it is to craft a script where there isn't anyone to be versus as a viewer? I mean, it's a constant sort of hesitation or a questioning of yourself when you're writing that, I bet, where you're kind of like, oh, is this moving fast enough or far enough, or does the audience know who to root for when you don't have someone who's a clearly defined villain?
Sure, everyone is a little bit up against themselves and their own bias.
It's one way to look at it. You sort of crafted, each person is their own villain to a degree?
I mean, a little bit. I would say that mostly the biggest obstacle that they're trying to overcome is just to adjust to a really new world. The other sort of unusual thing about this story structurally is that with almost 3 protagonists, it's sort of a mini ensemble, we were calling it. I kind of gave each character his or her own line, which is very different from the way you craft a single protagonist, 3-act structure script. So I think that helps too, because in the edit room, these guys worked really hard to intercut, once you're rewriting the script basically in the edit room, and to keep the energy up. But having those 3 people, I think, also helps when there's the absence of a big bad villain. But there's a lot of wonderful movies out there who are kind of operating without that force, where the forces of antagonism are a little bit more internal, or sort of just the context, this new context that they're up against is a little bit conceptual of an antagonist, but it's still there. It's still real. It's providing tiny little challenges day to day. So this is what we really liked about the movie, was to call it sort of a daily life social issue comedy drama.
Christine, there's a reveal, a sort of reveal at the end of the film, without giving anything away, a reveal about your character that sort of goes against the main protagonist's preconceived notions about you. And I'm wondering if, knowing what that reveal is when you go into the performance, did you modify the performance for other scenes that would sort of help elevate that reveal later on?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, I think, when Rob and I talked about doing this, that scene was really an important anchor to playing this, and I feel like that was what we talked about the most. And I was so, it's so funny because how many days did we shoot? I mean, it was total days.
The total shoot was 20 days.
20 days. So
moving like this,
moving so quickly, and a lot of it was just jumping in and out. But that particular day with that scene, I mean, it felt like we were doing a major studio film where you took so much time with that. I couldn't believe it. I really thought it was going to be like, okay, I got to get in there and do this really quickly and do it really well, and then we got to move on. But we spent a good 3-4 hours.
Producers were not happy.
In the morning.
4 hours, can you believe
4
it?
hours,
We
I
would
know.
spend 4 hours, but that's a half a day basically,
Yeah.
especially with young actors. And yeah, well, I don't want to get into your, but yeah, we definitely.
Tough scene to do though. I mean, there's a lot of tone and layers in that scene that if it goes the wrong way or if you don't have something in the editing room, it can completely change what you're trying to do there.
For me, it's the pivotal moment in the film where you realize that we're not on anyone's side, and that actually Mack, who's in a way the most pious character and is kind of in the trickiest situation, he snaps at the wrong person. Not to give away too much, but he makes a kind of a big mistake and is hurtful in a totally understandable way. Everyone in the scene's acting in a totally understandable way, and yet it's heartbreaking. And then the next scene with the couple discussing it, it's hard. You know, it's the story of America. It was heartbreaking because you can really empathize with all the different people and feeling victimized or called names. And yet here we are, we're all in this country together and unable to have a conversation, and how do we move forward? And the film was made before this recent election where all these issues got incredibly heightened, but clearly these are issues that have been around for a long time and will be for a long time more.
It's not necessarily just about race either. I think when we talk about misconceptions or preconceived notions about other people, it doesn't even necessarily have to do with race. It has to do with just where someone's from a lot of the time.
Absolutely. I mean, it's about class too. You know, the film is definitely about class and what people who live in cities bring to their assumptions about people who live in small towns and vice versa.
Let's get some questions from the audience right here.
Hey guys, thanks for being here. The film looks so beautiful. I can't wait to see it. My question is about the title of the film. What is the inspiration behind that?
Sure. It's sort of a long story, but I'll keep it short, I promise.
The song?
It is the song. Yes. But what we love most about
I even knew
it,
that. I didn't know.
What we love most about it is that it refers to both little boxes that you have to check that gives you a category, and then you have to say, do I live up to that category? How do I blast that category open? That's what we hope people are thinking about. But also moving boxes. Then we have the song Little Boxes. But we really did look hard for a title. It was called Black Kid for many years, and when Clark was sort of more the focus of the story, we wanted to make better, more interesting roles for the adult characters too. So then it became a mini ensemble, and we were looking for a title.
It's also kind of like a harsh title for what is essentially like a light, wonderful film.
And when I was pitching it for like years as a director, what are you working on, Rob? And I'm like, oh, it's a movie called Black Kid, but it's gentle film. And I was like, this is going to be a problem.
The minute you're apologizing for the title.
We're already like having an awkward conversation. And I think it used to be much more Clark's story, and definitely had more of that. It's a gentle, humanistic film, so it felt too provocative a title. Certainly, there's intelligence to having a provocative title to start people thinking and talking and notice your film. But yeah, in the end, but titles are hard. It was called about 8 different things, and it was a script supervisor on one of these like van rides home that said, "What about Little Boxes? That's a nice title." And we were like, that is a nice title, but it's the song and Weeds. Do we want to step on Weeds' toes? And then we're like, what? Now we're overthinking it. Let's just call it.
Oh, was it in Weeds?
It was the theme music for Weeds. That was the reason it was almost not called Little Boxes, because we didn't want it to be like, is this a Weeds movie? But yeah, we decided, at that point, you could sense how we were becoming crazy people and overthinking things.
Next question.
Hi guys, thank you for being here. So I was wondering if maybe any of you had a similar kind of transition from the urban environment to the suburban environment, whether or not you brought that to the role or the creation of the movie or whatever.
Annie, you've got to take that.
Well, I mean, I sort of did. I wrote the screenplay and then, in fact, did leave New York City, where I had been for several years with my family. And I think part of the reason I wrote the screenplay was because I knew that we would most likely leave. My husband is a scholar. Academics go where the jobs are. So I wrote the first draft knowing that was coming. So I've had a lot, but I'm curious to hear about you guys.
I'm curious about Oona. You've traveled all over the world as an actress. So I imagine you've been dumped into all sorts of environments.
Well, Yeah, definitely. But I've always actually been a city kid. Like, I've lived in New York all my life. So, yeah, I think it was kind of, I think there's like a certain personality, or there's some differences between city life and suburban life. And I feel like, yeah, I definitely had to like trigger that in my character almost. So.
Do you feel a little like Clark when you go into suburban life, in the sense that you have knowledge and awareness of certain things that you've picked up on living in the city, but other kids don't know about those things?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I also think like just being an actor, like, I don't want to sound like, oh, I'm an actor, so I'm better than everybody else, but like.
But even just that was really precocious, and I don't know if a suburban kid would have that self-awareness.
Oh no, what am I doing? But yeah, I don't know. I guess like when you're like a kid actor, there's like, it's kind of hard to like, hang out with other kids, because I don't know, you kind of get exposed to some harsh topics when you're much younger, and I feel like, yeah, I don't know, that kind of changes things for you. So,
Christine, what about you?
Well, I grew up in the suburbs. I was a suburban kid my whole life in middle America, suburbia, Pennsylvania. And then I moved to LA when I was, 19 years old. And, Los Angeles is its own weird sort of suburbia. I don't even think of Los Angeles that much as big city living, because you're driving and everything is really sort of segregated. But interestingly, we moved our family back from LA about 6 years ago to New York, and we started not upstate, in Westchester, out of the city. And then made the move into the city. And it's really interesting because my daughter, who's close to Oona's age, when we first moved back, it was all about her staying suburban. It was really, as this 8-year-old girl, of like, we don't live in New York City. We don't, like, it was scary to her. And now as a 15-year-old, she never wants to leave New York City. She's like, oh no, I'm a city kid. I never want to live in LA. So it's really interesting, I think, with age and at that period of time in your life, what you connect to and what you can relate to.
Did you find any sort of this idea of preconceived notions about when you moved from LA to suburbia, and also being like a somewhat public face, and bringing your kids to school and meeting other families?
Yeah, well, it was really interesting too, because my husband was born and raised in New York City, and we sort of had that happy medium of we'll live close enough outside of the city, but still keep a city life happening. That was really important to him. And ironically, I feel like I was the one that gravitated more towards being in the city more, and he loves being in the country. I think spending your whole life in one place. But I think we've managed to sort of juggle both, and in somewhat of a successful way.
Let's get into it. What's the problem with your...
Things seem like they're okay, Christine.
Juggling the city and the Westchester life.
I think we have time for one more question.
Hey, thank you for being here. My question's for Christina and Oona. What did you each take away from working with each other?
Well, I mean, let me just start, because I feel like, one of the things for me in the role was, I think, sort of Oona's character is first of all so different than Oona in real life, and so different from my daughter in real life. But so trying to come at it in a way where you're just like a mama bear protecting your own, no matter what. And I think, even though Oona does these sexy dances with her friend, I'm just a mom trying to do my best with what I've got. And she's aware, she's fast moving, and but this is a working mom who can't be there all the time. And I feel like it was a really interesting thing, because as a parent, and you see a lot of those kids and parents at school, it made me less judgy about some of because you're dealt what you're dealt, and kids grow and adapt and have friends with it's out of your control once they go to school. So I feel like just from a fundamental sort of mom place, it was such a fun dynamic for us to play, because I think it's so different than what we're both used to in real life. Yeah. But I don't know how you felt.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I mean, yeah, you definitely, I guess I admired the way that you just took on this role that, was really, really different from you. And, but also, like, I feel like on set, you just were, like, such a mother to me. And I just, like, I love that, because you were always, like, checking on me and stuff. And it was great. So, yeah.
We like each other.
Yeah, I like it.
Christina, I think you did a wonderful job with this character because I think when I was watching the film, I didn't recognize that she was a single mother until it's really stated. Right. But then once the character stated it, I was like, oh, I get it. Like she's doing this with her performance. She's slightly tired a little bit of the time. She's like, but she's still like a great mother. But she's got that thing that a lot of single moms have without overgeneralizing. Excuse me. That's just kind of like, what is she doing right now? All right, let me go deal with this.
Yeah, just trying to be on top of it. I'm going to get there. I'm going to deal with this. We'll deal with it later. Get out of the room. Don't dance like that. Put your clothes on. Let's, but
very
yeah,
practical.
I know it was. Yeah, I think very practical. It's sort of like, what's next? Okay, I just got home from work. Take care of the kid. But thank you. Yeah.
I love it, guys. Little Boxes is playing at the Cinema Village in New York City.
Village East.
Village East. Oh man. All right, I'm out of here. Sorry, guys. The Village East in New York City. How else can people see it?
It is on iTunes as of today, as well as Amazon Instant, and playing in LA at the Music Hall Theater, pardon me.
I think Columbus, Ohio as well.
Gateway
and
Film
Santa
Center.
Fe. But for the vast majority of people, either if you're in New York, we'll all be there tonight at the 7:20 screening doing a Q&A with Carrie Fukunaga, who's the executive producer, and then everyone can see it on anything you download movies on, I think. Vudu. It's not on cable on demand, but it's on all the other digital streaming platforms. So.
And Netflix later this summer.
Yeah, then later this summer, if you want to see it that far in the future, you could see it for free on Netflix. Actually, Netflix, it was a huge deal. They were the first to acquire the film out of Tribeca, so we're thrilled to be on Netflix globally starting in like July, so everyone in the world will be able to see it, which is really
Congratulations, guys. It's a wonderful movie. Little Boxes. Thank you so much. Thanks, guys. Thank you.